Today we'll be discussing the book Publishing Journal Articles, a scientific guide for new authors worldwide, written by Zhang Yan. Catherine Snow, who joins us today, is the John H. and Elizabeth A. Hobbs Professor of Cognition and Education at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. I would like to remind all of you to enter your questions into the Q&A feature, which will be active throughout the event. Dr. Snow, you can take it from here.
Great, thank you, Rihanna. Well, it is my great pleasure to be able to introduce Zhang Yan today. I first encountered him sometime in the previous millennium when he was a first-year doctoral student at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, at which time he was in the pro-seminar, the Human Development pro-seminar that Kurt Fisher and I co-taught, and he subsequently completed an EDD in 2000 under the primary supervision of Kurt Fisher, but I was a member of the committee and stayed in touch with him, and subsequently he has done very interesting work on aspects of technology and human behavior related to technology. In fact, I guess I would characterize his work as being focused on things that many of us just sort of take for granted, that he understands the complexities of, that he sees as interesting, complex challenges. So how to use mobile phones, for example, or how children understand the complexity of the internet. So that line of work, his sort of work in cyber behavior, is one major line of work. But the other side of seeing that things that other people just do actually have internal complexities that are worth analyzing has resulted in this volume, which is what we'll be talking about today. The idea that there really is a set of skills and a set of principles behind publishing journal articles that graduate students and aspirant scholars actually ought to know about, ought to recognize as challenges in their world. So I'm looking forward to hearing what has come of the ideas that Zhang first talked about while he was on sabbatical a few years ago and was attending my lab meetings, where the sort of original plan for this book was developed and nurtured. Zhang, look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, Catherine, for the nice introduction, and also for everything you told me in the past 25 years. Thanks, man, and for organizing this book talk. Hi, everyone. This talk is about how to publish journal articles. The talk will have the following 4 sessions. We will start with the introduction with the 3 papers. And then we will do a quick overview of the 3 features of the book. Then we will discuss the 3 examples, which is a major part of this talk. And then we will end it with a conclusion of the future trend of the published journal articles. And so that is a kind of outline of today's talk. Our goal is, in the end of the talk, we'll try to deepen our thinking or our understanding of the published journal articles, rather than how to prove our writing. So if our understanding of the journal article publication has been proved, then we will work together to this goal. This book actually is dedicated to Kurt Fisher, my advisor and mentor, as many of you probably know, or also as a Kurt Fisher student, and who is Emeritus Charles Bigelow Professor of Education of our SI, and was briefly fighting against his illness when the book was written. And he passed away on May 30, 2020. To start this first part of introduction, I would like to ask you, each of you, to think about our guests and which article, which paper has been published in a journal. So there's three papers. The first one is called Predictive Validity of Total Score on First Term GPA of International Exchange Program Students. It's my master thesis. It's survey 120 international students and using multi-regression analysis, and then find some very interesting findings. The second paper is a virtual multimedia library or a virtual learning community, and how course websites support learning and teaching. This is a term paper for T699 technology and education courses. The study surveyed 400 students and teachers of GSE, and then try to find the function of the course websites. Then the third one is a skill analysis of the micro development of the understanding of the how to using computer software, statistics software. So this is my qualified paper, QP. It's about 10 people working on one of the assignment of the introductory statistics. So I was working as hard as you can see from these three cartoons, and work on those three papers. Any guess which paper ended up published? Okay, here is the answer. The first one, only one article has been published. The first one still sleep in the corner of the library. The second one is still sleep in the drawer of my the study desk. But the last one published in a good journal, Human Development. It's 2002. As you recall, the initial paper is has done in the 1997, and take about 5 years, eventually published. And then also actually had a Kurt Fisher is my co-author. And so probably people will probably wonder what has happened for these three papers. Well, for the first paper, I have no idea about the published journal articles. I worked like a crazy donkey for 3 summers and then really try to publish, but no, I don't have no idea. So after 3 summers, I give up and never submitted. The second one is a paper I submitted. Actually, I received the editor letter invite me to resubmit. I don't feel very happy, and I didn't realize that this is a great news. And then the editor asked me to cut the original manuscript of 40 pages to 20 pages, which is regular page length. I think every word is come from my heart. It's very hard to cut. So eventually I asked the editor, I write email to the editor, could you tell me what part you think should I cut it? Then I can go ahead to cut it. You know it, right? And the editor never replied to my email. I'm still waiting until today. So that's the second paper. The third paper, we submitted, and then we get a very strong criticism why invite us to a revision. So could work with me, not only submitting, but more important, work with me in terms of resubmission, especially work with me to write the resubmission cover letters. So this paper finally published, and then because this is one of the reasons of this paper, I got a tenure track offer in one of your universities, which I'm now teaching. And this paper, after 2002, as you can see, has been cited for about 170 citations through the years. Still this year, many people still cited this paper. And I was very feel happy because not only personally I have reward, but also I imagine about 20 person per year reading my paper, eventually I sign my paper. So now you can see the impact of the journal publication. So what does these three story can tell us? What does this three paper can tell us? Well, I like to using the book title to tell three lessons we can learn from the three papers that I already work on. The first one is for the new authors, like me, or like probably many other who are attending today's talk. The publication is challenging. And the second one is that for the new author, especially for the authors who is writing, try to publish first article, it's like search something in the dark. So therefore, third, the lesson we learned is that it will be very useful to have a scientific guide to help us go through the procedure and then really find the lights at the end of the tunnel. So that's such an introduction. Now is second part is what is the book about? The first one is the motivation of this book. It's really come from one big idea, and Catherine and I worked in several years ago, is that we find out that there's a big two. So-called big two is that there's a two modern core professional skills. Very important. One is a journal article publication. Second is external grant writing. Suppose if this is a two core professional skills can lead into the personal or professional development, then we assume that in the graduate school, we should have a systematic training to help people develop these two skills. However, across the world, at the major university or in a general university, the training is not typically offered. So therefore, this book is trying to fill the gap as an initial, one of the initial efforts. So what is second is about, what is the book is about? Well, the book is really introduction. It's a concise and gentle instruction about a field. It's called the science of journal article publication, or a specific term is called the journalology. And then probably people wonder, how this book is written then. Well, the book, each chapter have a very similar structure. That is follow the Nobel Prize winner, Daniel Kahneman's theory. System 1, System 2, and System 3. More initial thinking, rational thinking, and initial rational thinking. So the book, including starting with the 80 intuitive thoughts, that's try to collect the data about people's initial thinking, and then present 50 real-life cases. After that, the book will introduce 100 core concepts related to journal publication, journal article publication, and then the end of each article is 50 research-based suggestions, so that I hope to foster the intuitive rational thinking. The book is considered to the book has 16 chapters. Totally is 6 parts. So the first part is about the nature of journal publication education. The second is element of journal article publication. So those two are the conceptual foundation of journalology. Then the part 3, part 4, and part 5 is dealing with the strategy of planning, writing, and publishing. So that is a major chunk of the book. Then ended with general trends for the future journal article publication. So this is overall what the book look like. So in the following session or part, I will focus on 3 examples come from 3 chapters. One is a chapter 1. How do we publish journal articles? Second, who are the chapter 5? Who are the readers of your articles? And third is from the chapter 14. What should we do after we submit a manuscript? Okay, so the first question, why do we publish journal articles? Sounds like it's a very straightforward answer, right? So I'd like to each of you, if you can, think of this question and write down that what immediately comes to your mind. Okay, now I'm going to share with you a few new authors from across the world. How do they think about why do we publish journal articles? First one, by publishing journal articles, we are able to share our findings with other research in the field and may get a response to improve our research. So let's focus on the research. Second one, if we as a scholar want to be influential global leaders, we need to publish. It's also required to publish article for being academic faculty. So it's related to scholars and the faculty. The third one is very interesting. This author, a new author saying, why do we not publish journal articles? What would happen if we don't publish journal articles? Does every people have to publish journal articles? That's very interesting, right? And is this those responses similar or different from your initial thought about why we need to publish journal articles? Maybe very similar, maybe very different. So are they correct or partially correct or totally wrong? Let's look at one real life case. Neil Duke was an excellent doctor student in an excellent doctor program at an excellent university. Actually, is a HDP in higher education, one of the outstanding alumni of our HGSE. So she planned, at that time, planned to graduate in 1999. So what she did for her dissertation is that she wrote a proposal first to specify and justify her case of writing journal article as her dissertation. And I successfully received the final proof from COD. Her dissertation then consisted of 3 parts. One is introduction, and then 2 journal articles. Of course, she successfully defends her dissertation, but the most important, interesting is that on the day after her dissertation defense, the second day, she's sent out these 2 articles to the 2 first-tier journals. After 1 year, both articles was published. One actually win the International Reading Association for very prestigious outstanding dissertation work, and another be actually reprinted in a very good book. Not only that, but she got a tenure track offer at Michigan State. And now she's a full professor of literary education at the University of Michigan. So what can we learn from this case? Why do we publish journal articles? Well, there's a few concepts behind this case. We can use in the 3 cycles of scientific research to discuss this case. The first one, there's an insight. The smallest cycle is starting with the design research and then ended with a completed research. So that is a typical research methodology course we learn in our graduate school. And then the result is a dissertation or final paper or term paper. However, there's a more broad cycle related to professional activity that is a thinking external grant and also publish journal articles. That is a professional activity. And then more broadly, the research we do, the grant we will try to get, and then the journal article we try to publish, actually automatically is to serve the purpose of advanced scientific knowledge and improve human life. And that is one of the very important concepts behind the case of Neil Duke. And answer the question, why do we need to publish journal articles? Why is this concept important? It's a fundamental concept and very important because number one, it is a motivation for us to try to publish journal articles. Because we want to advance the knowledge, we want to improve human life. But also it's a criteria for the people to, the editors or reviewers try to assess the quality of the manuscript and then decide whether the paper is published or not is related to whether this article really advances science knowledge or improve human life. But also eventually, these people will see the impact of your research based on how much knowledge you have been advanced and what kind of human life have been improved. So this is a first one, first chapter. Let's move on second one. Who are our readers of our paper? Obviously, right? So if you don't mind, you can write down your answer and whatever come to your mind quickly, you write down. 1 or 2 words. Who are the readers of our papers? Okay, I'm going to share with you a few new authors across the world, what they think about who are the readers of readers of the articles. First one, the readers of the journal article are the people with an interest in a particular topic. Second one, well, the readers are students, need to find the sources for the papers they are writing, and others are researchers who want to keep up with what is happening in the field. So the reader is a student and the researchers. And the last one is interesting. There is a various group of readers actually, but I would categorize them into 3 groups. One is an academic group, for example, professor students. Second is a professional group, for example, entrepreneur or businessman. And the third one is a general group, for example, family, customer. That's pretty good answer, right? So is this similar to the answer you have or very different from the answer you have? Are they correct, partially correct, or totally wrong? Let's look at the one case. Their case. If you look at the photo, you probably should recognize this is one of the most famous psychologists. He was in the Bob Sternberg used to be in the Yale, right now in the Cornell, professor of psychology. He's very known for his intellectual theory. As a good friend of Harvard, one of Harvard Gardner, Professor Harvard Gardner. And he is also one of the most productive psychologists in the world. The rumor goes is that any given week, he's writing 50 books. However, when he was in the undergrad student, so at Stanford, so he completed his first paper for publication. He's very happy. He knocked at the door of his advisor office and asked him for advice. So his advisor did nothing. Basically, just immediately turned into one session of that paper. After quick reading, and his advisor pointed out the one problem. Bob, there's 2 leading experts in the field has not been included in this session. So he asked Bob to go home to do the homework before submitting. A question for you. What is the session this professor go to? The answer will be A, title, B, abstract, C, introduction, D, method, E, result, F, discussion, next, reference, next, appendix. So the correct answer is a reference. You go to the reference section and then look through and find out the two leading research is now be included in the reference. So what does this case tell us? This is one of the very famous case about the journal article publication. So what does this case tell us about? Well, there's a few important fundamental concepts behind this case. Before any paper published, that is called a manuscript. For the manuscript, there's editorial readers. They are the reader of the manuscript. They are managing editors or editorial assistant when you're submitting to the journal website. And then there will be the editors associated or the action editors try to handle your papers. And then there's external reviewers review your paper, assess the quality of the contribution in terms of advanced scientific knowledge or improve human life. And then there will be publisher editors and publishers. Among all this editorial readers, the external review are the most important readers of your manuscript because they are the jury to assess the quality of your paper. So that's why the Sternberger's advisor look at this, because those two people potentially will be the reviewer of the paper, or his other student or researchers know these two people were saying these two scholar has not be reviewed. Of course, after the paper accepted, then the paper manuscript become an article. For the article, the real reader will be the scientific community and also the media community, and also there is a general public community. So people probably thinking, is this important for public journal articles? Yes, this is one of the most important issue when we write a paper for publication. We need to know who are the authors, what do they want to know, what do they don't know, what the potentially kind of challenges they've been raising, what kind of question they will ask. So therefore, we will have a very good communication with the external reviewers. And in fact, sometimes you should know who are the most likely to be the peer review, external review articles if you do the research very well. Okay, so let's move to the last example. That is, what should we do after we are invited to resubmit a paper? So I invite you again to write down 1 or 2 words about what do you like to do that come to your mind very immediately. Okay, let's look at how the other people thinking about this. So one new author indicating the author should review the feedback received, right? And then make a change and to respond to the feedback as appropriate. So that's about the review, about it, make a change. Now, after considering addressing feedback, then the author can submit the revised manuscript to the journal. Second, the person indicated that a revising manuscript carefully reflecting and addressing the review of the comments. Our response related to the revision should be carried out through track and change, writing the cover letter with a professional and current manner. This response similar to the one you write down, or very different from your initial thought? So clearly here, those answers address a variety of the issue related regarding how to review the feedback, how to changing the manuscript, and also relate to how to even using the technical feature of the tracking change, and mention about the cover letters. Are those responses correct? Partially correct? Or actually quite long? Let's look at the one case. Jeff. Jeff is a new researcher from Malaysia, right? So he's submitting a manuscript and then receive a letter from the editor, invited him to revise the resubmitting. Yeah, this is great news, right? But in the editor letter, he was asked to prepare a cover letter specifically to respond to the comments made by the two external reviewers. So Jeff worked very hard to revise the manuscript. And after 1 week, he's submitting the revised manuscript along with a 1-paragraph cover letter. To his surprise, the editor sent him a letter very quickly, indicating his cover letter did not respond to the review's comments adequately, his revision was not satisfactory, and his paper was rejected. So what's happened, and what kind of conceptual understanding we need to have in terms of revised resubmit manuscript? So in general, there's two types of the cover letters. One is a submission cover letter that you submit your paper initially and with the cover letter to introduce your paper. So that is very routine and it's very easy. And honestly, some editors even don't look at the submission cover letters. The second type of the cover letter is called a resubmission cover letter. The function is to specify and justify your response to the reviews. It's very, very important, very critical. The editors or the reviewers will read your responses line by line to determine whether the quality of revision is satisfactory. And write a resubmission cover letter is very challenging. And it is a key skills to distinguish from a junior writer to the senior writer. For the junior writer or new authors, the resubmission cover letter make them down, just like the case we have before. But for the junior writers, the resubmission cover letter, they shine in that stage. Really significantly improve the manuscript, but also adequately address each and every comment made by the reviewers. So eventually they will go through this stage and then the paper was accepted. So people probably are still wondering, is this resubmission cover letter important? Yes, it's one of the most important skills in published journal articles. Okay, so that is about the book. To end this talk, I'd like to mention about the future trends. For the history of the journal article publication, the first two journal, scientific journal, published in 1665. One is French journal, another British journal. So after 300 years, there's two things happened. One is 1980. There's a digital revolution occurred across the world. Starting, of course, related to the computers, internet. The second is 2002. There is it's called a Budapest Open Access Initiative. Short term is called a BOI. That indicating a worldwide movement in terms of moving from in terms of paradigm changes. So that initiative leading toward the two very important trends. One is the journal publication paradigm is moving from paper paradigm to digital paradigm. We will see more and more journals in digital form rather than in the paper form. Second major trend is the journal business model, moving from a subscription model, and then person or institution subscribe the journals, and then we will be able to access to the journals. To the model is called the open access model. That is, any author need to pay APC. So-called APC is article process charge, between $500 to $5,000 per article, pay to the journals, and then the journal accepted the paper, then the reader can access to the journal for free. And right now, based on the Whaley, the transition to the open access is accelerating, especially the ongoing COVID-19. So for us, in the next 5 years, assuming we will retire, every of us will be retired by the 2065. The next 50 years, that will be very, very chaotic, because the journal article will have the variety of the tremendous changes. So be ready for the perfect storm. So we are not only need to take down the old house, but also we need to build a new house. So that is a real challenging phase for, especially for us right now, in terms of journal article publications. Before I end this talk, I'd like to say a few quick notes, present five quick notes about journal article publication. The first one is a journal article publication is a marathon, international marathon, rather than 100 dash. Attend one workshop or publish one article will not achieve the ability of journal article publication. The second, it's of course receive some writing tips is useful. However, the strategy we're using, the decision we're making, the concept that we're having are critical. Of course, today's talk, we focus on average what people do, rather than how individual author, individual article, individual journal, and the individual context, and how we should do. And of course, this talk is mainly focused on the science part, but not the art part. And the last one I would like to mention about publication is journal article publication is one of the core major manual to advance scientific knowledge and improve human life. However, there is a very, very many variety of way to advance scientific knowledge and then improve human life, rather than just through the journal article publication. But our goal is really to improve our thinking, our journal article publication, rather than try to improve some of the specific techniques in terms of writing. So before end, I'd like to mention a few quick notes. First one is if people want to have the slides, and then you can email me. And also for the book, you can go to the website of the two publishers. And also if you have publication challenges, especially resubmission challenging, for example, how to respond to the reviews request. And then I have the publication clinics. Normally it's 15 minutes per person. And then through the Zoom, it's free. And also I plan to teach a module or a course in the spring 2023 when I will be on sabbatical again with the under the Catherine Snow's guidance. And then if some people even interested about the field of the genealogy or even the more broadly meta science, and you can look at the link that including here so that we can learn how to change in the world. So thank you.
We are going to start answering some of your questions on our Q&A feature. Let me start with one question that we received earlier. For Zhang, what inspired you to write this book, and what do you think is still missing in this field of teaching people how to publish journal articles?
I remember when I and the wife discussed to have the baby. So I asked around, before that, I asked around how much we spent on the diaper, how much spent on the food. So ended up, I learned that having a baby is a 3-generation commitment. It's not about the diaper or it's nothing about that. So you see, I teach child development, but I don't know child development. So here, the same thing here. The motivation for me to write this book is my struggle with the publications. The 3 examples that I show you is a good example that I just don't know whether this is important and how to do that. Luckily, I have a lot of mentors like Catherine Snow, Kurt Fisher, teach me, show me. So therefore, now I know, well, the journal publication is not just something, it's a field. It's a field about 3,000 empirical journal articles has been published. Let alone those green literature of the editorial materials actually is a very important material for the journalology to study how editors think about publications. And what is missing? The missing, I think there's a lot of things missing in terms of our to be able to teach this kind of courses. I think one of the reasons potentially could be people didn't realize this big tool. Only have anecdotal kind of experience rather than really from the practical policy making and the theoretical level to know this is a critical, this is important. Therefore, we need to training and we need to do a good job. So therefore, our graduates, when they get into the job market, they can compete, they can win. Otherwise, we do know how to become leaders. I learned how to become leader, but when I go to the university to teach and try to get tenure, I know not only leadership, I need to publish, and I need to publish a lot. Normally, on average, is 3 articles per year in the first 6 years, and normally 1 article take about 3 years to publish. So do the math, think about how challenging it is. But I hope that we can learn in the graduate school rather than after we get tenure. Before we after we get offer and then try to get tenure.
Thank you. We have another question. You mentioned the art versus the science of journalology. Can you share a bit more about the artistic components?
Probably later, Kathleen can help me a little bit in terms of arts of that. For example, how do you know the paper is ready for submission? There's no fixed criteria saying this is ready, 90%, or this is not, 50%. Then different journal, different field, they have different criteria to assess the quality of articles. For example, some journal only accept the article using at least the multi-regression. But for other journals, mean standard deviation is more than enough. So those are the two examples that I can tell you this artistic one. But Catherine, can you share us a little bit of your experience as many years of editors of the famous journal Psycholinguistics?
Well, I have, I guess, perhaps more examples than anybody would want to hear, but let me take us all back to Zheng's Bob Steinberg example. One of the very recurrent phenomena in reviews that I have gotten for articles I've submitted, reviews that I have overseen as a journal editor, was that people get very annoyed when they think they should be cited and they haven't been in any manuscript. And sometimes that annoyance is justifiable. Sometimes it's like you really don't know the field if you haven't cited this body of work. And sometimes it's pure narcissism, of course, the classic academic sin. But it is thus really important to do systematically, as Zheng has been suggesting, what we do automatically in face-to-face conversations, namely trying to understand where our interlocutor has come from, where the interlocutor is, what the interlocutor's interests are. And of course, the interlocutors in this case are these mindless or these faceless reviewers. But still, you can make a pretty good guess about the kind of person that any journal editor is likely to invite. And you can, of course, also suggest reviewers. One of the things that I learned as an editor was that, you get 16 manuscripts and you've got an editorial board of 25 people, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, who's going to review all of this? But if the author submits a paper with a few suggestions of people on the editorial board or not, it really helps support the editor in the process of picking good reviewers. Not necessarily those people, but at least people in the same general area. So I think this big challenge is precisely, is this paper ready to submit? And the only way you know that is by giving it to a bunch of people to read and saying, what do you not understand? What do you think is wrong with it? What could be better? Because we're very bad readers of our own prose.
Wonderful. I want to share another story. It's a true story. It's from HGSE schoolmates. So we met each other in the AIA conference. So we say, hello, how everything doing? So she said, now I figure out how to get tenure. I said, how? Before I submitting manuscript, I will email to the editor, ask them whether the paper is a fit, and also what's the turnaround time now. So she will decide how fast the turnaround of the journals and make a decision, so that she will be able to publish 3 articles per year before the 7 year. If we think about this article, this is our part 2. There's a wide variety of the issue is related to experience related rather than scientific principle, what you should do. Another one example, for example, if your paper was rejected, how do you do? There's a variety of ways to do. Our principle is that we advance knowledge and then improve human life. That's our shared goal between authors and editors. However, how do we decide whether we're going to peer? The peer was worthwhile time for us to spend time to peer on it. And so there's a lot of experience-related decision.
Thank you. We have a really good question here. Do you have any advice for international authors who try to publish in an English language academic journal?
I expect that this problem will come out. For me, as you can see from my first 3 articles, find a co-author.
And thank you. We have a logistical question here. How can we access your clinics if we are alumni but not currently enrolled? Can that be possible? As an external editor myself, I find this such an excellent and accurate initiative.
I even can guess probably this person's from Turkey because by some reason I recently I have someone with communicate with one editor from Turkey. Yes, just email me, and it's not for the editor. We are the colleagues, so we can discuss some of the shared issues, share the challenges, and the concern we have, rather than for me to offer some advice. And we learn together, and then we tackle the issue together.
Thank you. There's another good question here. The book has a lot of great examples. How did you collect so many examples from students and beginning researchers and also well-known professors?
I'm dealing with this publicly related the issue every day. So for me, as a teacher, and as editors, as reviewers, and as authors, and as some people interested in this field, the cases everywhere. Of course, the key is to find some of the cases. Then behind this case, there's an important concept involved. Then those cases become a very good case for me to use it. Cases everywhere. As long as the people are interested in publishing and reviewing and editing, there's a lot of the heartbroken examples. I keep receiving people submitting, and then we always support the new authors. So I invite them to resubmitting, and every time we ask them to please submitting the specific cover letter to tell us how do you address each and every comments the review have. Sometimes they only write one sentence or one paragraph. And even I told that one person actually 5 times, still one paragraph. So I need to show an example of what the good cover letter look like and how long it's going to take. Normally it's 6 months. A good cover letter is 6 months.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. I would love to know your thoughts on how we should deconstruct the house of publishing when it is so tied to the traditional tenure process for faculty. How can we get senior faculty and provosts to join the process? Well,
Catherine, can you help me with this policy level questions? You are the former dean and the chair, so help me a little bit, and then I will also think about some possible example.
Well, I guess one dimension of this question is, particularly in a school of education where people are operating in different disciplines and submitting papers of very different genres to a wide variety of journals, is to think about how much education people making tenure decisions need about the role of topic-specific journals versus field general journals, the role of the value of say, literature reviews versus theoretical papers versus qualitative research, quantitative research, because all of us come to those decisions with our own biases and prejudices, and we all prefer the kind of work that we ourselves do. But in adjacent fields, a very different style of work and a very different set of journals might be highly valued. Some lines of work are very, very productive. You can publish 3 or 4 papers a year, and some take a lot of time. So it takes a couple of years to finish a project. And I think just helping deans, who are better at this because they're closer to the people submitting the papers, but provosts in particular, who are not very close to this and who have to take a university-wide view, helping them to helping educate them about those differences, I think, is a major challenge, not one I have a solution for necessarily.
One, personally, from our own personal perspective, we just need to work on it. Be productive at the same time high quality. So therefore, your case would be very strong rather than bothering. So number is strong, number of publications strong, the quality of paper is very strong. But if you produce less or the quality is less, then your tenure case will become, depends on a variety of factors. From the policy leadership perspective, there is a problematic practice is looking for the number of publication, quantitative number, also looking for the impact factor of the journals, or looking for the citation of the journals. Those indications are important, are professional, no doubt about it. But how we can collect a variety of the indication really to assess adequately and also fairly of the how the one research advance human knowledge and also improve human life. One example is Tu Youyou, who is a Nobel Prize winner 2 years ago. She only published one article in her career, one article, but her work is really saved the people's life in terms of how to overcome a very special kind of disease. So his contribution has been recognized. Of course, need 30 or 40 years. But the key for us is to believe that this is very important to advance scientific knowledge and also to improve human life. It is our motivation. It's also the criteria of the assess the quality of science and also the outcome of our impact. Then a lot of issues can be solved along the way because that's our shared goal, right? Then that's why we talk about journal publications.
Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation and for everyone here for attending this very important and informative book talk. And we'll see you at our next event. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Catherine.
Thanks.
Thanks, Maya.
Bye.
Bye.